So, the greatest quiet. What's your relationship with quiet? Some people love quiet, and some people are scared by it. So I want you to think about what your relationship is with quiet. I read this quote, and I really loved it. And I found a new author, because I didn't know the man who wrote this. Silence is not an absence of something, not an absence of something, but the presence of everything. His name is Gordon Hempton, and he's an acoustic ecologist. And for 30 years, he's traveled around the planet studying life in places of quiet. Does that give you the God bumps? It does me. To go to places around the world. And he says, it's amazing. And I watched some YouTubes, and it was so beautiful what he heard in the quiet. And he said, actually, silence is an awakening. And it's my prayer. I'm sure what he meant by that, it's just where he felt the closest to the divine presence, to spirit, to God. And that's that's what we're striving for, to be able to be in the place of silence and have the greatest connection to spirit. You know, in our busy lives so often when quiet, what is quiet? You know, quiet isn't here so much, and we try to fill it with distractions and noises so we'll be more comfortable. But Rumi, and thank you for that, Barbara. Oh, I love Rumi, you know, my favorite boyfriend, but anyway. He says silence is the language of God. We know as good spiritual practitioners that God doesn't speak in the language of words. God speaks in that warm, colorful language of feeling, that universal language. But Rumi goes on to say, everything else is a poor translation. When the lips are silent, the heart has 1,000 tongues. And that's what we realize when we really do the practice of learning how to practice being in the silence. We find it's the place when we clear out the stuff, you know, because that's what we'll run into first. I mean, when you get into silence, what's the first thing that happens to most of us, most of the time? We get hit with fears, worries, things we haven't done, lists we have to do. We get, all the dreams that aren't fulfilled, or all the things we haven't done toward, all that hits us. And we have to learn how to move below that. Ernest Holmes says this, he calls it the silence. And he says the silence means a contemplation in the quiet of the mind, when the objective turmoil is temporarily still, and we rise in consciousness. And that's the whole idea in silence, to open ourselves up, to merge with that something bigger. He said when we can truly sit in this place, it will be the greatest thing we ever do. But we have to train ourselves. How many of you are really good meditators? Really good. I mean, you can really quiet your mind. Show me, come on, be brave, show me. I'm sure we have, did it happen like that? No. We have to practice and practice so we learn how to be in that place. You know, Virginia Woolf, 20th century English writer, and she was a pretty prolific woman. She was a pioneer in new ways of writing, and she learned how to write through the stream of consciousness. And, you know, that's connecting and just writing, trusting life to give you what you need, right? If you've ever done that stream of consciousness, again, the doubts can get in the way and you're wondering, but it's living there. And she said, we will never find peace by avoiding life, by avoiding what comes up. So when we sit in the silence, because yes, it is a challenge, the stuff that we don't want to face oftentimes comes up. Has anybody but me found that out? You know, it comes up and it's blaring at us. It wants to be healed. But we're afraid of that, so we just fill the time and make us busier, which just makes us anxious, right? We get more anxious when we get into the silence than accepting the gift it wants to give us. And over-anxiety is one of the most negative states of mind there is. You know why? It denies the beneficence, the goodness of Spirit of God, that ever-present energy, the creative intelligence that's here now. And it denies that when we're using our time and energy to be worried and afraid. Boy, I've had to talk several people off the cliff this week, including myself. Because there's so much in this world right now that's crazy and busy, and we get confused. But do you know what happens? When we stop thinking about our problems and make a decision to think about solutions, then we start having a relationship with Spirit. Then we start having a relationship with something greater than we are. We say almost every Sunday that every problem holds a solution, right? We know that. How many of us are living it? It's hard. It's hard because we get wound up. We start marinating in all of our problems. In fact, a lot of times we start adding a few more, ingredients to the marinade, a few more problems and worries, and we go stirring it up instead of recognizing there's an answer here. Because Spirit, divine intelligence, is the creative energy that knows the answer. It's there always for us, but we have to create the space and learn how to be in the place to open that door. Jesus said, "Behold, the door is, I stand at the door and wait. Behold, Spirit stands there waiting for us." How many of you live in partnership with God? All of us sometimes, of course, sometimes. The problem is God's the silent partner. Darn, and we got to work at it. It's there, and we have to build that relationship, and that happens in quiet. There's a cute, Hafez, another Sufi mystic. He says this about silence. A day of silence can be a pilgrimage in itself. Only it can be silent around us, but if our mind isn't silent, it isn't a day of silence. But a day of silence can be a pilgrimage in itself. It can help you listen to the soul play its marvelous lute and drum. Is not talking a crazed defense of a crumbling fort? I thought we came here to surrender in silence, to yield to light and happiness, to dance within in celebration of love's victory. Aren't we here to celebrate? Aren't we here to appreciate life and be in the presence of goodness? Ram Dass, have any of you heard Ram Dass speak? Yeah, when he was fluid and could talk, and then we heard him after. I think he was a Jewish Buddhist, is what I believe. He practiced both, yes. But a brilliant man, a professor, just brilliant. And you'd heard him when he'd speak about Spirit and everything. It was wonderful. And then I heard him again after he'd had a stroke. And his silence between every word, between each word he said. But here's a quote. He said, "The quieter you become, the more you hear." And he knew that. And that's so true. It's so true when we can become quiet. Mindfulness and meditation are tools we use, and it's practicing. When you first practice meditation, you find a tool where you let your thoughts float away on clouds, or go down the waterfall, or do something to get the clouds work. It's not that when we're quiet or in meditation, we won't get thoughts. It's learning how to control our thoughts, to be the thinker behind the thoughts. So we have the control that the thoughts aren't going to overtake our mind. We can let them go. We need to train ourselves to be quieter. And Deepak Chopra says, in the midst of movement and chaos, keep the stillness inside of you. And that's the benefit that I cherish, that I can find stillness even in the busiest of places. Not always, but that's when we're really connected with infinite spirit. When we're connected to spirit, we can have stillness no matter where we are. That's why when we're in a group of people, we can have an effect if the energy is starting to raise and we can hold that place of stillness. We can be that beneficial presence for people. We can be the influence. Rumi said, let go of your mind and be mindful. I don't know what you read, Barbara, but that was very close. And close your ears and hear. Close your ears and hear. That's what we want to do, be in that place. If we're going to train our ears to hear, I want you to just close your eyes for a moment. I always invite people, if they can, to just let their mind rest on their heart. The power, the love, and the presence of your heart. And just silently to yourself, say, I perfectly hear the voice of good. And then listen. In this space, we're either preparing the way for good to be heard gradually and slowly, or we're opening the place for it to be a flash of insight. Wow, inspiration, wow, knowingness, wow. And say, my inner and outer ears are receptive to the vibration of perfect harmony. Because what we know is that life does work. There's a perfect balance and harmony to the way life works. Divine mind doesn't have any problems. It has creative inspiration and newness and knows the cycle of life. So being in that space, just be aware what it is for our prayer wall you need to come up with, to let go of the chatter, to be more open and available, to accept creative inspiration in your life. It's all there for us now as we open to it. So my call to action today is for everybody right here and right now as you open your eyes and come back to this room. And if you're sleeping, just please wake up. No matter how many mistakes any of us have made in our life. Doesn't matter. I think we've all made a lot. But no matter how many mistakes we've made, there's a perfect person in us. It's that soul of spirit, that divine urge, that spark within us that doesn't know the problems, that only knows it wants to be revealed. Do you know, I read this definition of evolution, and I can't remember where I put it, but I loved it. It was really good. The evolutionary journey is the awakening to draw out the God principle already latent within us. That God principle is the perfection. It's already there. And I don't care how many mistakes we load on top of it. We will always be more of ourselves than less of ourselves. No matter what cruddy experiences we're experiencing, there's always something more right here and right now that we can open to. Always more of ourselves, never less of ourselves. And that's our journey. I'm going to ask you now because if you want to come up and take up our prayer wall, that's fine. If you just want to pray, because we establish a dome of prayer, a dome of spirit. We know that our prayers are answered as they are spoken. They're heard. They're answered right then. But it takes time often to come down to earth, down to this experience here. You know, Ernest Holmes said, the most practical people in this world have one hand in heaven and one hand on the ground. That's the way they are being the vessel, the vehicle, the open space, the channel to bring heaven to earth right here and right now. So as our ministers and practitioners open themselves up to be that channel of spirit and create this wall right here, we're going to ask for a little music in the background. And come on up, come on down. As our practitioners are finishing up, I simply invite you to join with me in the knowing and acceptance of the goodness of Spirit that is around us, within us, and through us right here in this moment. And we allow that energy, that essence, that light of God's infinite love to wash over us. And let us let go of any littleness, smallness, pride, selfishness, anything that keeps us closed off and separate from the good that is ever present. We take this time and that space of releasing and letting go to open and expand our faith and our trust in the goodness of life, to feel ourselves in this moment right here and now merging with that something greater, that greater possibility, that greater creativity, that greater wisdom, that greater love, that greater prosperity, that greater goodness that's available right here in this moment. And as we open the door and accept right here that perfect love, perfect Spirit within me knows the answer. And just know here in this moment, whatever the question is on your heart right now, there is an answer. And we open to it and make ourselves available in this moment to the good that is already here. And as we accept it and embrace it, we know truly that we are loved, we are important, we matter. And as we help ourselves release and let go and be open to Spirit, we help others in the same way. How good it is to be here in community. How good it is to know the power of love and healing and goodness and wellness and peace right here and right now. We open our ears to divine harmony and our hearts to infinite love. We just are so grateful right here and right now. We say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. And thank you for being fellow travelers on this journey with me. I am truly blessed, and I know we are all better because we're together.